in and around Atlanta. We do have a couple of things that we have to stay on top of this morning. We're talking about some of the storm damage that we've seen throughout North Georgia after those overnight storms moved into the area. Also, we're watching Congresswoman Lucy McBath saying that she's potentially going to run for governor. I'll tell you why we're saying potentially. And then also, we're talking about today being the last day if you would like to secure your money in a settlement that is being paid out by Atlanta-based Park Mobile, which is a service that a lot of us tend to use on, at least a couple times a year if you're out and about and you're doing what you have to do to ensure that you are parking and whatnot in all of the areas that we have out here. But first, we want to begin with the storm damage. We're talking with Atlanta News First Blake Devine, who has more on what we've seen across the metro, because still this morning at this hour, there are several down lines, power lines, and also several trees that have now been down as a result of the crazy wind and also just the remnants of what we were seeing from last night's overnight storms.
A tree came crashing down into this neighborhood late last night. You can actually see the spot where the tree cracked in half and fell on the street. Now, cleanup crews just arrived here on the street here in Grant Park. And a car is actually under the tree. It was crushed this morning. We just talked to the neighbor who lives nearby. He says he was late to work. He's a surgeon. All of this commotion taking place around 11 o'clock as the neighbors say they saw some sparks and then the power went out, as it has been out now for several hours. The good news, neighbors we talked to say Georgia Power has told them they plan on restoring electricity by 9 a.m. Although this road could be closed for quite some time, as it'll take quite the cleanup effort to remove all of this tree debris. Reporting in Southeast Atlanta, Blake Devine, Atlanta News First.
Yeah, quite unfortunate to see some of what has happened out there. Another story that we're watching at this hour regarding President Trump and what he had to say to the session of Congress yesterday. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about what he said. He touted the accomplishments of his first weeks there in office in the second term. There in that speech, this was delivered before a joint session of Congress last night. This wide-ranging address lasted about an hour and 40 minutes, so just under 2 hours, and it was the longest presidential speech to Congress ever. And in it, the president said America is back. He promised to lower prices, bring peace around the world, and safety to the U.S. border. Atlanta News First Sarah Hammond has continued coverage on how Georgia was front and center at President Trump's congressional address.
A tree came crashing down into this neighborhood.
For one, former Georgia Congressman and now Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins was named the designated survivor during this speech last night. And President Trump also invited Laken Riley's family. And that invitation came as immigration crackdowns have been a large part of the president's first few months in office. The White House says ICE agents have removed about 50,000 undocumented immigrants, some from right here in Georgia. And during his address to Congress, President Trump spoke about the 22-year-old nursing student who was killed by an undocumented immigrant on the University of Georgia's campus. Laken Riley's mother and sister could be seen mouthing thank you as the president touted his signature of the Laken Riley Act.
Last year, I told Laken's grieving parents that we would ensure their daughter would not have died in vain. That's why the very first bill I signed into law as your 47th president mandates the detention of all dangerous criminal aliens who threaten public safety.
Some Democrats walked out of the president's speech in protest, including Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who is the chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. In a statement, she said she could not listen to President Trump speak about policies that she says are harmful to Georgians. At the state capitol, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
Sarah Hammond, thanks for that report there. And this morning, we do have a full recap of the president's address to Congress. You can find that on AtlantaNewsFirst.com and the free Atlanta News First app. Also staying in politics this morning, Georgia Congresswoman Lucy McBath is possibly going to run for governor. We are getting some new details this morning, and she even released a statement to Atlanta News First regarding this decision that she is making. But we are learning this news that she has taken the first step towards a likely likely run. And here's why, this is considered that step, because we are learning that she launched an exploratory committee, which allows her to start raising campaign funds. So typically that is the first move that a lot of potential candidates will try to do to put their name in the ring. We're also learning right now that, after launching this exploratory committee, this is going to, again, allow her to raise some of the campaign funds and whatnot. She has, been very, very active in our state, representing the 6th District since 2019. And she basically said in her statement that she believes it is time for the American people to hear from somebody, or allow them to be led by someone who has lived through maybe the things that they are going through. So Governor Brian Kemp is constitutionally prohibited from seeking a third term next year. Last November, you may remember, Republican Attorney General Chris Carr announced his run for governor. Well, this morning, some news for you if you are a user of Park Mobile, which most times a lot of us probably have to use it at least a couple times a year as you're out and about parking whenever you're in the city. Well, today is the final day for you to secure your cut of a multi-million-dollar settlement from Atlanta-based Park Mobile. The popular parking app has to pay $32.8 million to roughly 21 million people following a 2021 data breach. That breach exposed users' personal information. Now, those payments will be capped at $25, but you have until tonight to submit a claim for a cash payment. Money is money. Get yours if it is due you. And it is Ash Wednesday. We know this as the first day of Lent. Typically, Catholics celebrate this day, again, as the first day of Lent, and really just making sure that they have an opportunity to, parishioners can repent, they can fast, they can pray, all of that leading up to Easter for 40 days. Well, Catholic churches across North Georgia and here in the metro specifically are going to be commemorating the day by holding Mass and distributing ashes to people. They typically put the ash cross right there on your forehead. However, it is possible that some of the churches have been impacted by the severe weather from overnight, so you may want to call or check your church's website or social media pages just to ensure that they are still going to be meeting today. Spring break. When I think of spring break, there are certain places that come to mind. There are others that I never think about. So here is a list of the top spring break destinations this year. Florida taking up most of the top 5 cities, according to a new study, with Orlando and Fort Lauderdale taking the top 2 spots. Atlanta came in at number 3. That may shock you because we don't have a beach. We've got nightlife, though. That could be the spot for nightlife, maybe. And followed by Atlanta was Miami and New York City. When most people think of what spring break is, most of the time you're always just assuming, got to go to Florida, right? I'm going somewhere where it is guaranteed to be warm. Atlanta, we've got a cooler day today, but thankfully things are going to warm up later on this week, according to First Alert meteorologist Ella Dorsey. We do want to give you a live look outside right now. Definitely not looking like spring break out there. Still very cloudy after those overnight storms from last night. At 11:30 in our segment, Weather Where You Are, you'll hear from our team of First Alert meteorologists regarding how long the gloom will be around and also some of the changing conditions that you may experience today if you're out and about. We'll keep you posted. And remember, you can always catch up on the day's big news stories by heading over to AtlantaNewsFirst.com. You can always find the latest on the free Atlanta News First app. Make it a great Wednesday.